Touchdown, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they're the cannons. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Brady throws a deep pass. It's a caught ball. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Mike Evans.
We came down in 2014. We opened up the wing box.
They got the loaded fries. We got buffalo wings.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. If you ain't watching, you ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Live on YouTube today for episode 222. And live from Barriehaus Beer Company in beautiful Ybor City. How are we doing, folks? The first ever Cannon Fire watch party is underway, and we are excited. We're going to be live on YouTube for the next couple of minutes, previewing today's game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and, of course, the Washington football team. But welcome back to the show. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucks fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. And down there at the end, we're not going to unmute his mic just yet, but James Hill, a.k.a. Mr. Bucks Nation, the honorary third member of the show, joining us for this special occasion. How we doing, boys?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here at Barriehaus. It's a great place. We got Wingbox food truck right out there.
Oh, yeah, our good buddy Tony Baloney making his way through the crowd
Tony,
right now. Yeah.
Tone.
Hey, come get those wings on camera real quick. Do you want to? You know, I mean... Yeah, do your thing. It's his food. I don't want him to have to show it on camera, you know what I mean? But I'm just trying to show you guys what's going on.
Though.
Oh, my God. We're outside in the
smells.
beer garden right now, and everything smells delicious. James, how are you feeling in the early goings here?
Feeling good, man. You know, actually, when you were doing the intro and you said, beside me, literally beside you, is Evan. That's awesome.
Yeah, we only get to do so many of these in-person shows a year, so I'm glad that we could finally get around to it. We got the equipment all figured out, and everybody's here. We got our buddy Brandon, Tony Baloney, here he comes. So come check this out, folks. What'd you get? Break it down for us, man.
I got 12 mild wings because I'm a wimp.
Oh, it's all right. Here, hold this for
I feel
me.
you. I feel you.
I'm not going to put my fingers on your food, I promise. But, this is just the boneless wings, folks.
No, that's bone. That's not chicken.
Oh, it's
Bone in.
bone
Bone in.
It's so crispy.
Nuggets for Tony.
So no chicken nuggets for Tony Baloney. It's so crispy, though. Hell yeah.
There you
Right,
go.
right.
Enjoy.
Hell yeah.
So, you guys understand the massiveness of what's going on. Are these the boneless? Bone in, more bone in?
More bone in.
More bone in.
You guys see
Can never have enough bone
the
in.
wing box action. You still have time to get out here. Game starts at 1 o'clock. We're going to be live until just before then. But, guys, really quickly, I want to get your thoughts on just the game. I mean, me and James talked about it on Friday for a little bit. And, for the Bucks, obviously they want to get back to their winning ways. Was hoping they'd be 7-1 by the time this came around because our buddy Tony Baloney said he'd buy everybody a beer, but it's almost like he knew something there. So the Bucks coming into this one, you're going up against Washington, a 2-6 football team. There's no reason you shouldn't go back out there and start playing, the brand of Bucks football that we're used to seeing by now.
No, and I mean, if you want any shot at a 1 seed, we talked last week a little bit about how it really broke the Bucks' way with the Saints losing, the Rams losing. It really broke the Bucks' way, but it doesn't matter if you go out and lose this football game. It's all for naught. So, like you said, 2-6 football team. This is a team you got to beat. Will it be pretty? Who knows? But you gotta find a way to get a win. You cannot lose this game. You lose to the Bills later, whatever. They're good. But these are the types of games good teams win, and the games that you gotta win if you want home field advantage.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be, it's a game they need to win, right? The good teams always beat these kind of middling, teams like the Washington football team right now who have been struggling this year. They're missing pieces on both sides of the football. And, like you guys were saying, at this point in the year, you're hoping they'd be 7-1. They had that really rough game against the Saints. They still need to work on that. But coming out of the bye week and coming out of that Saints loss as well, them getting a win here is going to be huge to get momentum back in their favor, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think a big thing that goes into this game as well, it's kind of been a hot topic throughout the first half of the season, and frankly, it shouldn't be. But the penalties have to be cleaned up, and I don't think there's a better team in the league than a team like Washington to go out there and, like I said, just go back to playing your brand of football. You look at the rest of the schedule, and like you had alluded to, Evan, you've got the Bills, you've got the Saints. And then aside from that, most of them are winnable games. I mean, the Bills and the Saints are obviously still winnable games too, but you got to show up and you got to play your best. We talked before about the Bucs, having this odd talent of being able to out-talent certain teams, and Washington, of course, is just one of those teams. And then you look at the rest of their schedule, and you've got a lot of teams just like that. So, of course, today the situation is no different if you want to get back to doing what you were doing. The Buccaneers actually still undefeated at home. So the sake of winning all of these games is obviously getting that home field advantage throughout the playoffs, getting as close to the 1 seed as you can. And right now, the Bucs had a great bye week, so focusing on winning this week. So everything that happened during the bye week can actually help us out a little bit more, right? The Saints losing, the Falcons coming up big in that game, and everything else that happened across the NFC. So for the Bucs, Evan, I mean, what other things are kind of weighing on this team as they come into this one?
Well, I mean, when you look at, you mentioned they're undefeated at home. They haven't scored over 30 points on the road yet. We talk about this offense and how good this offense has been, yet on the road they just aren't the same offense, right? It's been good. It just hasn't been to the level that they've been at home. I mean, I don't think they've had a home game where they haven't scored over 30, but yet they haven't scored over 30 on the road. You're facing a Washington team that is dead last in the NFL as far as passing defense goes. They're about middle of the pack in rush defense, so there's going to be opportunities to air the ball out, but you're going to be without Antonio Brown. You're without Rob Gronkowski. So guys like Tyler Johnson are going to have to step up. Chris Godwin was banged up all week. Hopefully, he's able to go fully today. We don't know if he's going to be on a snap count or anything. But, I think it's important. I think today might be the day they finally crack 30 points on the road. I think it's a good opponent to do it against.
Yeah. I didn't get to get your thoughts on the Friday show that I did with James, but Chris Godwin, his status was kind of up in the air throughout the week, and then we come to find out that he's going to be active. He's out there going to give it a go this week. Do you think it's a big week for Chris Godwin, or are we still looking at a guy like Mike Evans to step up? I mean, of course, you've still got playmakers like Tyler Johnson who can step up any given Sunday. But, should we expect a lot of CG out there? Is it one of those things where, he's in moderation until all of a sudden he has 150 yards on the day?
Yeah, well, I mean, he had a big week last week, or 2 weeks ago, right? In New Orleans. He had a really nice week. Tyler Johnson did as well. Yeah. So maybe Tyler Johnson gets a little bit more action today. I still think it's a big Mike Evans day. Right, and I'm so glad that Tony is here to witness because Mike Evans, I believe, he can make some history today, can't he?
He really can. I mean, for anyone who does not know, Mike Evans, obviously, a lot of weight on his shoulders in this one. One touchdown away from tying the franchise record, most touchdowns scored in Buccaneers history. He would be tied at 71 with Mike Allstott. 2 touchdowns today. He breaks that record and goes to 72 career touchdowns. And the thing about Mike Evans as well is he is obviously in some elite company. I mean, he's on a Hall of Fame pace. He's about to play his 115th career game. He is one of 5 wide receivers in NFL history to, by this point in his career, have 8,500 plus passing yards, or receiving yards, and then 70 plus total touchdowns. And I mean, he barely made that, right? So Mike Evans, obviously, the other 5 players that I was talking about, basically, pretty elite company here. Marvin Harrison, Calvin Johnson, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss. And the common denominator with all of those guys is they're all Hall of Famers. So for anybody to say that Mike Evans is poised to be a Hall of Famer at this point in his career, it doesn't seem too far-fetched when you really break down the numbers. And, I mean, honestly, I'm pretty sure he's averaging 70 yards a game, which is among the all-time greats. I think Jerry Rice has the record of the highest average yards per game at like 74 or 75. So guys like Tony Baloney like to discredit Mike Evans whenever they can, but I mean, this guy is trailblazing a Hall of Fame career, and he's done most of it in a Bucs uniform, which we got to be happy about as well.
Yeah, he's been spectacular, and I mean, I want to get James's thoughts on sort of what his career has been, because this could be a big day for him. Not only could he tie it, he could break it today, right? So I want to get James's thoughts on Mike Evans as a whole. Is he putting a Hall of Fame resume out there right now?
Oh, well, yeah, I would say no doubt about it. And I think that, I don't think it's a stretch to say he's the most impactful, best offensive player the Bucs have had in franchise history. And he continues to prove that week in and week out. And, given a game now where, we talked about Tyler Johnson, we talked about Jalen Darden, some of these other wide receivers who have to step up because of injury. I mean, don't forget, Mike Evans has been doing this a long time. It honestly kind of reminds me of back in like the Mike Glennon, Josh McCown days, where it's like Mike Evans was kind of the only guy out there. Similar vibes. A little bit of Chris Godwin can't play as much in this game, but Mike Evans can turn it up. Mike Evans can do what he needs to do when he needs to do it, and this is probably the best matchup he's going to get all year. Will they double team him? Yeah, they'll probably continue to double team him, but time and time again, Mike Evans always just continues to prove himself, and I think he'll do that again today.
Oh, yeah. One of the big things that we talked about on the game preview show, James, you and I, was the pass rush of this Washington team. And as we get into the weekly checklist here, I wanted to toss it over to Evan and see what you got on the checklist this week. The biggest thing on my mind, though, was this pass rush, because when these teams played in the playoffs less than, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, a little longer than that, 8 months ago, less than a year ago when these teams played in the playoffs, this young pass rush of Washington was the talk of the town. You had Chase Young, of course, having a great rookie season as he did, calling out Tom Brady, got everybody excited for that game. But with some injuries on both sides of the ball, they're missing Montez Sweat with a broken jaw for a couple of weeks. That's a big loss on this defensive line. But, I'm looking at the defensive line. I wanted to get your thoughts, and then, of course, the weekly checklist as we start to wrap things up here.
Well, yeah, you got to look at Chase Young. I think whenever you're talking about that Washington defensive line, you have to look at him, right, first and foremost. He said he wanted Tom Brady last year. He got him. He got a playoff L. And the Bucs really handled the Washington defensive line okay, right? As he's trying to hook that thing back up.
Yeah, pay no mind. Pay no mind, the man behind the curtain.
The Bucs really did a decent job, but I mean the Bucs kind of struggled at times, specifically when they got into the red zone against the Washington last game. Obviously, they had Antonio Brown that game, and they had Rob Gronkowski that game. So, does that make a difference? Who knows? But I do think they're up for the challenge today, because this offensive line, the Saints' defensive line they played 2 weeks ago, was really good, and they were fantastic for the most part against them. So I would expect another solid day, but you're going to have to protect Tom Brady. If Washington can get consistent pressure, it could be a long day, and I think they could set the Washington offense up with some short fields, which isn't great.
Do you think it's a good day to run the ball? I know we talked about the Washington defense is dead last, so we know Tom Brady's probably going to go out there and be a candidate for the defensive player of the week. But guys like Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, it's always interesting to see where they leave off after the bye week, right?
They've been trying to get them more involved.
Exactly. So do you think this is a week that maybe we see one of those guys get close to 20 carries, or is it more the 1-2 punch that we've come to expect these past few weeks?
Yeah, I think you're going to see more of a 1-2. I do think that they're gonna try to air it out. I don't think Bruce Arians is not going to shy away from doing that against this past defense. So even though they don't have Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, they have enough weapons. Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard. Cameron Brate actually played very well in the Washington game last year, in the playoff game. So be on the lookout for him, and I think they're going to air it out. I don't think they're going to look at this Washington team and say, "Oh, let's try to outsmart them." I think they're going to go for it.
James, do you have anything you wanted to add to the checklist? Something the Bucs need to do this week if they want to come out with the W?
Play complete football game, right? I mean, that includes everything, and I think the biggest thing is is at like penalties, right? Mental mistakes. That's the one thing that's holding this team back. Because, I mean, even with injuries, right? I think some of the guys who have been filling in have been doing serviceable jobs. It's just all a matter of, can they get out of their own way? That's going to be the biggest thing, right? That they need to do is get out of their own way. That's number one on the checklist. We've been talking about it for 2 weeks now since the end of the Saints game. Even the Bucs players have been talking about it, saying that they've been having conversations with each other about these penalty issues and how to correct them. That's the number one thing, because if that team can clean up the penalties and clean up some of those mental mistakes, they'll be unstoppable.
100%. One more thing before we wrap things up, just a quick injury update. Somebody had asked in the live chat. Sean Murphy-Bunting and Scotty Miller were not cleared from IR this week, so they will not be playing this week. But on the other hand, you take what you're given, it is a pretty good sign looking like SMB and Scotty Miller could be good to go for next week's game, right? You got to feel good about it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Richard Sherman seems to be 100% now. He was active versus New Orleans, didn't play, was sort of more of a emergency type player, so he's expected to be playing out there today. So that's a big boost. Hopefully he's in football shape now. He's able to, sort of really, I think he rushed himself, to really get ready.
Yeah.
And now he's hopefully in better football shape and is able to go. So I think that's a big boost. And they also, like you said, with Sean Murphy-Bunting potentially coming back. Scotty Miller isn't as big of a deal because of the receiver depth, but Sean Murphy-Bunting coming back will be huge for the secondary. So it's possible next week. We don't know for sure, but had to see how the practice goes. So are we getting into score predictions here? Or?
Yeah, man. So just a couple of minutes left. We are minutes away from kickoff on Fox 13. If you're in the Bay Area, Fox should be showing the game, Bucs versus Washington. But let's go ahead and get score predictions and then get out of here. I'll go ahead and go first. We talked about the Buccaneers airing it out. I think it's a big day for this offense. I'd like to see them get back to the speed that they were playing against teams like the Dolphins, against teams like the Bears, where, all of a sudden it's the end of the first quarter and Tom Brady has already thrown 3 touchdowns and has a stat line good enough for an average quarterback. So I'd like to see the offense get going today, and I think the Buccaneers take this one pretty handily. I'm going to go Tampa Bay 34, Washington 14, Bucs by 20.
Yeah, so I do think they're going to air it out, like I said, and I do finally think that the Buccaneers will get over the schneid, and they will get – that's a big word for me, actually. They'll get over the schneid, and they will score over 30 points on the road for the first time this season. I also have 34, but I have Washington scoring sort of like a garbage time touchdown. I have 34-21, Bucs win. Tom Brady has a big day, and O.J. Howard has a big day as well.
You love to see it, man. James, your thoughts, and we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I'm actually going to have a bold prediction here and say this is going to be the best game of Leonard Fournette's season so far.
Really
to this
quickly,
point.
just an injury update that we just got. Richard Sherman is out for today's game, so we were talking about how he, might want to take things into moderation, and maybe today is just a day for him to do that. But no Richard Sherman for the Bucs secondary today.
Yeah, so obviously Sherman being out is going to affect the secondary, but they played without him against the Saints, so imagine it's going to be a similar lineup of Jamel Dean, Pierre Desir, Ross Cockrell, some of those guys, D. Delaney being out there as well. So, no, but again, my bold prediction is I think it's going to be Fournette's best game of his season so far, both as a runner and as a receiver. I just think he'll have a really big game. I don't know why, but that's what I'm going to go with. But I do have the Buccaneers getting over 30 points as well. This is probably the best matchup the Buccaneers have had the entire year, I think, in terms of what their offense likes to do versus what the Washington football team's defense is bad against. So I'm going to go ahead and give a final score of 31-17.
Well, you heard it. All three of us have Tampa Bay coming out victorious, and we are looking forward to a really good football game. Coming to you live from the Barriehaus Beer Company in beautiful Ybor City. Shout out to my guys at Barriehaus. I am joining myself. I got a nice light beverage for the day. It's the apple pie cider. I'm kind of a cider guy. I'll start slamming beers once we get kicked off here, but you still have time to get out here. Game is just about to get underway. 1403 East 5th Avenue, I believe, is the address off the top of my head, but you can't miss it. Barriehaus Beer Company, Ybor City. Shout out to our guys at Wing Box. As soon as we get off of here, I'm about to go get me a big old basket of wings, too, and throw down. Thank you to every single person who has tuned in for the Cannon Fire Podcast pregame show. We will talk to you guys the same location, the same place, same bat time, same bat channel. You know how it is, from Barriehaus Beer Company. We'll talk to you after the game, hopefully a Buccaneers W, and it should be a good one. Thanks again to everybody who tuned in to our live chat. Willie Beeman, the moderator, holding it down. Pamela in here. Tony Saylor, Tony Baloney showing up today. Joel L. Rican, and anybody else that I may have missed. Thank you guys again. We will talk to you after the game. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.